Emma Carter adjusted the name tag on her faded blue supermarket uniform and glanced at the time on the old clock hanging above Register 4. It was barely 8 in the morning, yet the store was already filling with customers rushing to finish their shopping before work. She forced a smile, even though exhaustion weighed heavily on her shoulders. Life hadn't been kind to Emma during the last few years. After her husband passed away unexpectedly, she was left to raise her 8-year-old son, Noah, alone. Every dollar she earned disappeared into rent, school supplies, groceries, and medical bills. There were nights when she skipped dinner so Noah would never realize how tight their budget had become. Still, Emma refused to complain. She believed that dignity wasn't measured by the size of a bank account, but by the kindness a person showed when no one was watching. Her co-workers admired her quiet determination. She was always the first to arrive and often stayed late to help clean the store, even though overtime wasn't guaranteed. Customers appreciated her patience, especially the elderly shoppers who struggled to pack their groceries. She never rushed them. Unfortunately, not everyone shared her values. The store manager, Richard Benson, cared about numbers more than people. Every morning, he reminded employees that mistakes would come out of their performance reviews. No free items, no exceptions. Every transaction must be exact, he repeated so often that everyone could recite the speech from memory. Emma simply nodded and returned to her register. She couldn't afford to lose this job. As the lunch rush approached, the checkout lines stretched across the store. Shoppers sighed impatiently, while cash registers beeped nonstop. Emma continued greeting each customer with the same gentle smile, unaware that before the day ended, one unexpected decision would cost her everything she had worked so hard to protect and change her life in a way she never could have imagined. The afternoon crowd had finally begun to thin when Emma noticed an elderly man slowly pushing a nearly empty shopping cart toward her checkout lane. His clothes were clean but worn, and his shoes looked as though they had survived many winters. He kept his eyes lowered, avoiding the impatient glances of other customers waiting behind him. Emma greeted him with the same warm smile she offered everyone. "Good afternoon. Did you find everything you needed?" The man returned a faint smile and nodded. "I found enough." She scanned the few items in his cart: bread, milk, eggs, rice, canned soup, and a small packet of tea. When the total appeared on the register, the man reached into his pocket and carefully counted a handful of crumpled bills and loose coins. His hands trembled slightly as he counted them twice. After a long pause, he looked up with quiet embarrassment. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I'm a little short. Could you please remove the bread and the milk?" Emma glanced at the two items. They were the most important things in the bag. Without making a scene, she canceled the request and quietly took a few bills from her own wallet, placing them into the cash drawer before finishing the transaction. "There you go," she said, handing him the receipt. "Everything is paid for." The old man looked surprised. "You didn't have to do that." Emma smiled gently. "Everyone needs a little help sometimes. I hope someone would do the same for me if I ever needed it." His eyes filled with gratitude as he thanked her and slowly walked out of the store. Emma believed the moment had ended there. She didn't notice that the store manager had been watching the entire exchange through the office window. A few minutes later, he called her inside. "You violated company policy by paying for a customer's groceries during a transaction," he said firmly. Emma tried to explain that she had used her own money, but the manager wasn't interested. "Rules are rules," he replied before placing a termination letter on the desk. With one signature, the job she had depended on for years was gone. Emma spent the next week searching for work, but finding a new job proved harder than she expected. Every interview ended the same way. Employers wanted someone with a recent reference, and after being dismissed from the supermarket, she had nothing encouraging to show. Each rejection made the future feel a little more uncertain. At home, she tried to stay positive for Noah. She helped him with homework, cooked simple meals, and smiled whenever he looked her way. But after he went to bed, she sat alone at the kitchen table, calculating expenses over and over, wondering how long her savings would last. Meanwhile, the elderly man she had helped couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. His name was Robert Harrison, the founder and owner of the supermarket chain. For several months, he had been quietly visiting different branches without revealing his identity. Dressed like an ordinary retiree, he wanted to understand how customers were treated when no executives or cameras seemed to matter. Most employees had followed the rules, but few had shown genuine compassion. Emma had been different. She never asked who he was or expected anything in return. She simply saw someone in need and acted from the heart. When Robert received the daily management reports, he noticed an employee had been dismissed for violating company policy. Curious, he requested the security footage from that afternoon. He watched the entire interaction in silence. Emma had used her own money, treated the customer with respect, and never embarrassed him in front of others. Robert replayed the video twice before turning to his executive assistant. "Who approved this termination?" he asked. "The branch manager, sir." Robert's expression hardened. "Arrange a meeting with him tomorrow morning, and contact Emma Carter. Tell her I'd like to speak with her personally." The assistant nodded, surprised by his serious tone. For Robert, the issue was no longer about a cashier breaking a rule. It was about whether the company had forgotten the values it claimed to represent. He intended to find out exactly how that had happened and make it right. When Emma arrived at the company's headquarters, she felt completely out of place. The building was modern, the lobby was spotless, and employees in business suits hurried through the halls with purpose. She checked in at the reception desk, convinced there had been some mistake. Why would the owner of a nationwide supermarket chain want to meet a cashier who had already been fired? A few minutes later, she was escorted into a conference room. As the door opened, she froze. Sitting at the table was the same elderly man whose groceries she had quietly paid for. Only this time, he wasn't wearing worn-out clothes. He was dressed in a tailored suit, and several senior executives stood respectfully beside him. Robert Harrison smiled as he stood to greet her. "Thank you for coming, Emma." She looked at him in confusion. "I don't understand." "I believe you already know me," he said gently, "just not by my real role." He explained that he was the founder and owner of the supermarket chain and had been visiting stores anonymously to understand how employees treated customers when no one thought they were being evaluated. "You were the only person who treated me with kindness without expecting recognition," Robert said, "and instead of being appreciated, you lost your job." Emma lowered her eyes. "I wasn't trying to break the rules, I just couldn't let someone leave without basic food." Robert nodded. "That's exactly why you're here." The branch manager was then asked to join the meeting. After reviewing the security footage and hearing Emma's explanation, Robert made his decision. The termination was canceled immediately. The manager received disciplinary action for failing to use judgment and compassion when enforcing company policy. Then Robert turned back to Emma. "I don't want you to return as a cashier," he said. "I'd like you to become our customer care training coordinator. I want new employees to learn that policies matter, but humanity matters too." Tears filled Emma's eyes as she accepted the opportunity. That evening, when she told Noah everything that had happened, he hugged her tightly. "I knew helping people wasn't a mistake," he said. Emma smiled. Sometimes kindness doesn't bring an immediate reward, but even when no one seems to notice, it has a way of finding its way back.